Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, January 5th regular meeting of the Sachem Board of Education. If everyone can please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a moment of silence for all of our servicemen and women who are stationed around the globe protecting our freedoms. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Pelletieri for the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start with a welcome back to everyone and a Happy New Year, certainly to those in attendance and those at home as well. I'm going to start out with a recognition of a school, Seneca, a principal, Mrs. Salvia, and a student, Nicholas Golding. Mrs. Salvia, would you mind coming up? And I understand you guys had quite an event. I believe it was called Socktober, perhaps. Is that correct?
It is, yes. Good evening, Dr. Pelletieri, President Piccirillo, Cabinet members, and Board of Education trustees. Each night in the United States, an estimated 600,000 people live on the streets. On Long Island, it is estimated that almost 4,000 people are homeless each day. This October, Seneca wanted to help with this cause by donating socks to the homeless, an item that is so desperately needed. During the month of October, Seneca students participated in an event called Socktober. Each day, students brought in socks to donate to the Long Island Coalition for the Homeless. One student in particular took this challenge and exceeded our original goal of obtaining at least 200 pairs of socks. Nicholas Golding, an 8th grader, has a passion for helping those who are less fortunate and in need. Nicholas used the power of social media and spread awareness to his family, friends, and community members to get help. Nicholas was able to collect over 1,200 pairs of socks. His hard work, dedication, and kind heart is an inspiration to all of us. We collected over 1,500 pairs of socks for people of all ages, thanks to Nicholas, Seneca students, and their families. Thank you.
Nicholas, come on up, please. Mom, is that you as well? Please, come on up. Come on up. Nicholas, that is a sharp-looking jacket there. You have to request to look better than the superintendent. You got to let me know. Right? You can't just do it and show up. Nicholas, can you hold that mic for 1 second? Miss Salvi, might he? Thank you so much. Nicholas, I have a nice recognition here for you, signed by myself and the board president. I want to thank you so much. 1,200 pairs of socks. I got a couple of questions for you. First off, where did you keep them all?
In the school.
Oh, you just kept bringing them in, That's pretty. Did mom make you do that, or because she wanted them out of the house, or?
Yeah, we just took them out of the house.
All right. I got to tell you, it warmed my heart to hear that story about your school, about what you did yourself individually. Do you feel like you're here to help people, to serve people, to support people? Is that kind of going to be a mission for you in life?
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, great. Do you know what you want to do? You're only a middle schooler. My daughter sometimes says, she tells me, I want to be a teacher. Like she knows already she wants to be in education. Do you know anything like you want to do like that?
No, I want to be a police officer.
All right, well, that helps people, certainly. I commend you for that. I got something for you, too. Look at this. So I know you're leaving 8th grade already, leaving the school, but I think a few of us got some socks for you. And we will give them to you, and maybe Mrs. Sally will know where to still make sure they get there. So this is a pair of golden retriever socks. It says "Stay Golden." You ever read the book Outsiders by S.E. Hinton?
Not yet.
Read that book. That's a good Mrs. Hines, right? It's a good middle school book, right? Right up your alley. Right. I think you'd enjoy it too, right? And actually, a star of that movie is from this area. Is that correct? Ralph Macchio? Yes, from this area. So he starred in the movie. But again, an outstanding book. So I'm going to give you this pair. I see Mr. Piccirillo, you have a pair as well. Mr. Reynolds, Summers, Mrs. Trombetta as well. So we're going to give you these because you inspired us tonight. And I thank you so much for that inspiration. All right, sir? Thanks, Nick. Nick, we're going to take a picture, okay, as well? Come on.
All right, everybody ready? You look right here, smile. 1, 2, 3. All right, awesome. All right, great. Thank you.
Mr. Carrillo, we go sleep. You got Jordans on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Mrs. Hines, we have your report tonight, right? Why don't we start with that, okay, if you don't mind? We're going to do a little presentation, a brief presentation on our 9-period day. I understand that's coming to a head. We've talked about it a few times. We've made some decisions. We want to move forward. That's fine. That works. Thank you. And this will be posted online as well, right, for people to see tomorrow?
Yep, as they have been, right? Each time, Ms. Florio, as we present, right, we're posting all
What
this
page do they go on, Mrs. Florio?
under the Board of Ed.
On the main page? Thank you.
Okay, so our presentation tonight, and thank you so much for allowing us to come back and talk about this. And I say us because both myself and Ms. Trombetta have really been working on this together with our 9th period committee, our administrators, our chair, staff members, and as of recently, survey results from our students and families. So tonight, we're just going to kind of give a very quick recap about where we're at as we're really starting to want to start moving on to the planning phase and finally getting out information to our community. If I can start this. It's not working there, Allison. Wait. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so just a very quick background because I will say in our survey results, some of the results that we got back were people not understanding exactly why we were doing it. And so some people were like, yay, extra school, as what we had said in our first presentation. And some people said, wow, that's going to be a long day. But really, NYSED requires 990 hours of instruction a year at the secondary level. We always had a waiver, but now it is expiring. And so again, we're just ready to implement this. It's been a long-awaited thing that we've been looking forward to. And this will allow for additional support classes to assist our students in our goal for enrichment for all with rigorous courses and or updated electives based on student interest. Oops, excuse me. Okay, so where are we now? Very quickly, again, we met with all directors, building leaders, chair people to elicit potential courses. Ms. Trombetta and I did that very early on in the beginning of the school year, probably around October, I would say, right? We started. We met with every single department. We talked about everything from staffing to student interest to classes that we actually didn't think were really had a whole lot of numbers that we didn't want to run anymore. And again, with the goal of supporting students, especially at the middle school, to take those higher order classes so they have more room in their high school career to take more electives, et cetera. We also want to make sure that we have exposure early on in our middle school to all the pathways and offerings that we have at our high school. So civic readiness, our CTE pathways, that's our career and technical, it's like our carpentry, and then our college and career prep. And just overall life skills, really helping our middle school students to make that transition from elementary to middle and be prepared for that high school life and beyond. And then finally, our 9th period committee has really been our planning partner as well as our curriculum council to review all of our proposed courses. They give us a lot of sound, credible feedback to really think about in terms of sample scheduling, courses that we wanted to see, and then again, really wanting us to offer some more survey opportunities for our students and our families. And that was how we rounded out all the feedback that we got.
And again, Mrs. Hines, Mrs. Trombetta, this was not just us, hey, let's decide to do this one day, right? This is state mandated that we reach these hours. I know some of our students did write back in the survey, like, why we don't do this to us? You punish us enough already.
Yes.
I don't want any more. But It is something that is
Not everybody
mandated.
apparently is as excited as we are. to
Not
be
everyone
here
is as excited
all
as
day,
we were.
but
Right.
but I think also too we did talk about also our state assessment results, our AP results, where we saw kids in terms of moving forward in college and career. And we know that there are some districts surrounding us that have a ninth period, which we are aspiring to in our program. And in fact, we think it's going to be just as robust, if not more. And so we also hope to have those data results over the next couple of years where we see stronger numbers towards those goals.
And I'll just offer, I don't know if it's some, I think
Mm-hmm.
really the great majority of districts have the 9-period day.
They do.
Yeah.
But the ones that we had talked about were, generally around our area, and
Gotcha.
Sachem being the great, host that we are, always known for our sports. We really deserve to be also known for our academics as well. Okay. So 9th period class proposal, and I apologize, I really tried to make this a little bit bigger, but this will be posted on the website. And when you look at it in our presentation, it is very clear, so you can see all of the different items that we have. We have added everything in almost every department. Science, we have been doing a tremendous amount of work because of the new science standards. So those courses have been added on and or upgraded over the past couple of years. But you can see even in special education, music, drama with our first year, starting with the first class towards a theater arts program that we hope to continue to build. In the 6th grade in particular, looking to expand upon our world language exploratory. Our success prep is to help our 6th grade guys and gals as they come in with organizational and study skills. And then really the thing that we're very, very proud of is that extra math and science support enrichment for our grades 6 to 8. And then that college and career prep course in grade 8 to really help families and students prepare for their high school life and beyond. Okay, the thing that we really wanted to draw your attention to, because this will change life for our students and our families next year, not by much, but anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes or so. So we have our current bell schedule to the right, our elementary, our early buildings right now currently are starting at 8, and our late buildings, everything but Nokomis and Merrimack, so Grundy, Chippewa, Waverly, et cetera, those start right now at 8:45. Next year, our early buildings, which is Nokomis and Merrimack, they will start at 8:10, ending at 2:40. And then our other elementaries will be 8:50 to 3:20. And of course, care will work around that. So you don't have to worry about that as far as morning and aftercare if you do utilize that currently. In the middle school, we'll be going from 8:10 to 7:50 in the morning with a 2:40 ending. And at the high school, we'll be starting at 7:20. I'm sorry, we are starting at 7:20 now. We'll be starting next year at 7:10, ending at 2 o'clock. I don't know, Dr. Bilter, if you want to talk anything about this,
Just-
but
that's-
I know for us, now our clubs, our activities, extra help and everything truly will be starting after our 9th period now. And that will work with our sports, et cetera, as we move forward.
This is driven by transportation, right? We have to move a lot of kids across the district throughout Sachem. And in order to get everyone where they need to be at the time they need to be, we needed to make these changes to start and end times, and that's what we did. So wanted to get that on everyone's bulletin board nice and early, right? We have a long time before then. The elementary late buildings make 5-minute difference, but others are impacted a little bit more, and we wanted to make sure that people see that.
Okay, so some next steps. We will be sending our final 9th period information to the community and students. So our 9th period committee, which some of our illustrious board members sit on with us, thank you, and as well as our curriculum council. That will be our next goal, is how do we make sure that all community members, students, staff have all of the information pertinent that they need. Scheduling and staffing, Ms. Trombetta and I already started that somewhat. Ms. Trombetta really dives deep into that for us in her role, and that's what we'll be working on. We are moving towards a master schedule now for the middle school, so all 3 middle schools will be running a similar schedule. And then finally, curriculum writing and professional development for any of our new courses. Most of these courses right now we've already posted for, the ones that we're hoping we're going to start moving forward. And now finally, after our meeting today, we will post the last of our courses and begin that curriculum writing and again, professional development for anything needed, any additional resources. So that was quick and short, but we did want to just give you a snapshot again, and if there was any questions at all.
Mr. Scavo had a couple questions.
Aaron, thank you so much for coming out and providing us with this presentation. So the community could hear what's going on. And certainly updating the board. Two things. I know 2 meetings ago I proposed theater arts as one of the electives. I'm glad that it ended up on there, which is, I think, it's been an interest of students for many, many years in the district. But what I noticed is that it said set design. Is that what we're doing? Unless I read it wrong. I think when I
No,
pitched-
stagecraft it's called.
Stagecraft.
Stagecraft. So there is also a class called set design.
Okay.
It's a little bit, yeah, that exists already. This
That
is a little
exists
bit
already.
different. The set design kind of complements, from my understanding, the set design complements more the actual plays that we have, whereas the stagecraft would be that CTE teacher that's essentially showing them how to even design a set. So it's not necessarily the kids who are going to be in stage crew.
Mhm.
I mean, it can be, but this is for any child, any student who wants
So what
that.
we're proposing is more of the performance side of in the selective.
Yeah, well, this is the first year, and if you want, certainly we can do a little bit more of a presentation of it, or we can send it in the Friday board packet. But we were given a theater program. Mr. Reynolds actually brought it to our attention in our ninth period committee, and a few of our staff members had kind of built a program, one that we've seen in some other school districts. And while we would love to have all the classes year one, just like we do with every other pathway that we have, we start with that first ring just to kind of see what it was. And they had suggested in their proposal doing stagecraft first as part of year one.
And will that be geared towards 11th and 12th?
That's actually, yeah, right? Okay. 10, 11, 12.
So a
So 10,
child that
11,
enters
12,
in
I'm
year
sorry,
two
Mr. Chairman.
is going to get year 2 of the curriculum, and then 3, and then in the senior year will get year 1.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your
In other
question.
words,
Say that again?
in BOCES, sometimes what we have to do is we mix juniors and seniors, 11th, 12th
Oh, right,
graders, the same year, okay, in maybe an auto mechanics program. They might enter and they might be in year 2 of the instruction, but the following year they're going to get year 1 of the instruction. How will that work with the theater program?
So, I mean, I don't know, Mr. Ahmed, if you want to add to it, but, differentiation for our first year.
Combine grades, like would there be a 10th, 11th, and 12th grader in a class?
Well, in other words, where I
Yeah.
teach, I have strictly 11th graders, and we teach them 40 weeks of year 1 curriculum. When those kids leave me, in 11th grade to go to 12th grade, they get year 2,
Right.
okay, of culinary arts. Some of our programs are not as fortunate. They teach year 1, and they get a mixture of 11th and 12th graders, and then in year 2, okay, they get a mixture of 11th and 12th graders.
Mhm.
So in essence, a kid might enter in year 2 of the curriculum, okay, and then have to back up on year 1.
Well, there's two different stagecraft, or, right, am I
There's going
saying
to be
it?
2 separate teachers. One will be teaching year 1, and one will be teaching year 2.
Well, year 1 would
No,
be
year one
10,
is just
11,
one.
and 12,
Right.
and depending on when a child entered, they'd always enter through the first year. They'd
They
have
would.
to progressively go through
Okay.
the
Yeah,
program.
you can't enter into
But the classes,
second year.
based on our schedule and based on different electives, will always be mixed classes. It wouldn't be just for
But
10th
the
graders,
kids will be at
just
the
for
same
11th.
level if they're in year 2. They would have
Yes.
taken.
Yes,
year
because
one
they would have
already.
already taken the first class.
Okay.
This first year, our focus really is on getting the numbers of students who
Mhm.
are interested in even taking it.
Mhm.
So yeah, that first year just, is going to be a mix. But if you're saying like a
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm
child
not, I'm
can't
not
come
worried
in in
about
grade
having a
11
mixture of
and,
11
right.
and 12th graders. or
Year
10,
2,
11,
the
12.
prereq
My
is that you already
concern
had
is that,
one.
Yeah, it's a
kids
prereq.
coming in, if it's a rolling curriculum with one teacher, in year 2, you might get first year students, and now they're starting at a different.
Yeah, of course. And I think we can gauge that just like what we do with any of our prereq kids.
Mhm.
I mean,
I
classes,
also
but we
think
don't really
it's
know
going to
right
be
now.
the content area because year 1 is going to be focused more on set designing and building and teaching them more about the background. Year 2 would be more theater.
Mhm.
So then it wouldn't need a different teacher to do that. We wouldn't necessarily have a technology teacher doing that. They don't have that background. We'd move more towards art and music teachers or English,
So year
for
1
that.
will be set design.
giving them more of the background. Yeah.
All right.
It's
so
not
as soon as
just
that
set
maybe
design
is-
though. No, it's the whole,
But as soon as there's more performance, based.
that's going to be coming, we're envisioning it more year 2.
year 2.
I feel like I'm not answering your question though.
No,
So,
you are.
okay,
You
I
are.
just wanted to
You
make
are.
sure.
You are.
I just wanted to
I'm
make sure. There is an overall program, and perhaps we should have really
I have a list.
did a
I'll
little
put
bit
you
of a
on.
snapshot because I know that there's been some, interest in terms of the entire program. But this was to start it. We went on the suggestion. This is
Yeah.
just the set
I mean,
design piece.
Once again, I mean, I'm not a drama instructor or teacher
Yeah.
by any means, but, I guess when I envisioned this, a couple weeks back, or a couple months ago, I envision more of a performance, year one performance, year two performance, many plays, many performances for those kids that really want to pursue theater arts at the college level. I'm sure at the college level, stage design is probably, something that they're going to be introduced to. But and I don't know if it's, if it's too late to change something like that to make it maybe possibly look at a more performance based for those students that.
Well,
that
I'd like,
want
you
more
know what, I'm
theater
not a
arts.
drama teacher either. So I think we would have to go back and even think about
add
talking
on
to
to-
the staff about it. I'm not sure their logic. We just kind of went through the plan and,
Yeah.
what they had suggested to us.
Just to
But
add on to
I'm
what
sorry,
Mr.
Mr.
Scalvo
Reynolds.
was saying, right? Because I think we've got a lot of interest in the performance side, and I don't want to lose these kids if this is not going to give them what they are expecting or thinking about, right? Because if it's more of the construction aspect of the set design, I think we're going to lose the kids who really want to do the performance art. And I think that's sort of what I had thought as well. So,
Okay.
Yeah, we can certainly
can
go
certainly,
back
yeah.
and look at it. And my understanding is a 3-year continuum. And so
Right.
that's what we want to build. So let's make sure we get year one right and get the numbers so that we build from there. The suggestion was stagecraft, which is not set design. It's a different thing. It's part of that is set design, but part of that is stagecraft as well, which is more theatrical. We're going to have to get the right person to make sure that they're able to do this. So that's part of the issue as well.
My second question pertains to the culinary arts. We're adding a culinary arts pathway. I know I had asked a question at the last meeting. It obviously is going to be once a day for 42 minutes, right? Which is a total of 126 hours over a period of 180 days. It's students there every single day. At a BOCES program, it's 2 hours, 2 hours and 40 minutes a class, which comes to almost 500 hours of instruction. Are we still going to allow students that want to pursue that more advanced, more thorough level of instruction to attend BOCES? Or are we gonna
Yeah, completely.
they
Yeah.
would still be allowed to
Without a
attend?
doubt.
It's two different programs, really.
I would envision that this is maybe somebody that has an interest in cooking,
Mhm.
that wants maybe,
Mhm.
that, has,
And even college credit for it, right? Because we have to
Mhm.
have a partnership with,
we have that.
some
we
sort
have
of a
that partnership already.
university, so they might want to use it as a college credit too. But this would be, we have most of these classes already.
Mhm.
So making it a pathway for them is definitely something that they could use towards graduation and a college credit.
Have we established a relationship with a college?
That's what Ms. Graham is actually working on right now for us. We've been talking about this for the past couple of years, and as our applications for all of our CTE programs retire, and then we have to apply for the new one, as she's doing that, this year we're applying for entrepreneurship, and as I said, looking at the culinary one as well.
Mhm. And if we run into a jam at the college, let me know. I know many deans, many
Oh, okay,
universities
great.
in the culinary arts.
I'm going to be in that class. I made a meat sauce last night, Mr. Scavo. I'll share you the recipe with you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I love culinary arts.
Mr. Baumann.
My question is going to be quick. Who's going to teach the college and career prep class? Is that going to be guidance counselors or who
So our
teaches that?
guidance counselors are going to support that class, perhaps as, some push-ins or what have you. But we were really looking at our English teachers as a portion of that, because that would also have some research looking at college essay type writing, et cetera, et cetera.
So they probably bring in guidance counselors?
Welcome.
Mr. Reynolds? Okay, yep. Mrs. Slattery.
So regarding the theater arts, I was just trying to find it on my phone and I couldn't. So I only know because my niece took a continuum. She goes to Catholic school, St. Mary's. So it did start with that, but they could see it because it was an ongoing program.
Mhm.
And she was just accepted to the Tisch School at NYU for performing arts. So she was interested, but they started. So it's not just a set design class, and I was just trying to find it. But I think if kids, like we say, we don't want to lose them if they're interested in that. If we could, through
It will be in our
guidance,
handbook.
show the continuum so they see this is where you learn this part of it, and then you go on to this and this. So then it will keep their interest.
Yeah, this is something we've built kind of later rather than sooner, right? We didn't have this a year ago, this kind of thought or conversation. I think it's grown, and having visited Show at East recently to see all the different kids it drew in was really amazing. And so that's what we want to do. We want to build it and have them come and have it flourish. And so I know we have access to resources where places have these programs. And what we'll do is look at those and see what we're building. From my understanding and what we saw, the understanding the first year should be this stagecraft, which was not just let's go hammer and saw, but stagecraft, the craft of being on a stage. That's an aspect of it as well. But we'll look more closely at it, make sure we lay out the 3 years and have a vision for it.
Please.
So I don't know if this is a discussion for tonight or maybe future board discussion, but it goes along with this. I'm on the ninth period committee. Mrs. Hines and Ms. Salvia showed us the middle school schedules. First time I looked at it, I had a bunch of concerns, questions. Mrs. Hines, Mrs. Salvia went back, reworked things, but there was still some subset of students that weren't going to be given the same opportunities as all the other students, primarily special education students. And what I noticed in the scheduling was this, because of the algebra or the earth science for all kind of piece, with giving them that extra math, that extra science, so that they're prepared for that. That is the piece that was kind of then eliminating those students from being able to take a language and getting credit before they leave middle school. So I have some concerns around the algebra for all. I want to give our kids as much opportunity as possible, but I want to also make sure that these kids are ready for it. They're going to succeed. It's not just about getting, something to look good on paper, that we're really thinking about these students and what is going to benefit them. So I know we're having the conversations about algebra for all and earth science for all, but I would really like to know more of the district vision, how it's going to look from 6 to 12. What if parents don't feel their children are ready for it to take a Regents in 8th grade? How are we going to kind of combat that? And I don't know if you have the answers tonight. It might be something in a presentation.
It is probably part of a longer conversation. I will say that it is something that we're going to look to build over the next several years, and it's not something that next year everyone's going to be in algebra and earth science. It's going to take years to get there. We actually started this planning years before I got here, and we began by putting things into math and science at the elementary level to prepare kids for this, what we would hope would be ultimately. Again, we talked about some statistics and some data where we're concerned about our kids not just leaving us with a piece of paper, but making sure that that piece of paper means something. And certainly none of this is, I got to tell you, I'm passionate about getting kids prepared for college and career and not having a piece of paper. And so I'm going to start banging on the desk now. So I want to make sure that our kids are prepared, that we don't just throw something together, that we don't want to look in a U.S. News or World Report, oh, look, we went up a ranking because we did this, that it has nothing to do with that. This is ranking in kids' lives. And this, I'm just going to bang on the table again. This is really important to all of us. I'm sitting here looking ridiculous now. But
Right, and I'm all for letting kids get to those higher level classes and giving them the options and supporting them, because one of the conversations we first had when I came on the board was the discussion of, giving kids, that middle level kid who doesn't have the support of an IEP or not that AP student, how do we get them to expand and go into an AP class, try an AP class? So I'm 100% for that. I don't want to say that, but I just want to see almost like a plan, like how is this going to evolve over the next couple of years? And what if a kid isn't successful and they're not ready to take an algebra, or an earth science region 8th grade? What path are we going to have for them? And you might have the answers to it, but I don't see it anywhere. So I would just like to be able to see that, to see the 1 year vision, 2 year vision,
continuum.
3 year vision. Yeah,
Right.
Exactly.
We had touched very lightly on it when we first started talking about the ninth period committee. And as Dr. Pilitari said, we started this conversation long before this year, but because now we have the ninth period, we can actually see it come to fruition. So when we say algebra, earth science for all, it kind of makes me streak a little bit, just because we've been saying, just we want to make sure that every child is working to their potential in math and science. And some that may be algebra and earth science, and some that may be, I just have better skills so that I really rock it when I get into ninth grade. But as a mother myself of a child with special needs, she would not be successful where she is now if we did not push her and have those high expectations for her. And as a parent, we also want to make sure that our parents feel comfortable to have a say. But us being able to come and share that is something that we've been really looking forward to. We've been working diligently with our math and science department. We have the same thoughts. Are we ready? We're not ready. We have everything from after school math enrichment classes that we're ready to start, to curriculum writing that's going on. So we'd be very happy to come and share our continuum with you.
There are initially a handful of classes in 8th grade that are math, earth science, and algebra. I'm not happy to say that, but it's a handful. And next year, we're going to have a handful more. Like, that's it. It is not going to be I'd like to get to a tipping point at some point, but we're not there, and we're not going to be there for a couple of years. But we are going to have a lot of Mr. O'Keefe over the next months or so in terms of budget and budget presentations, but this is something that we can start to put together and do once we get a little bit, I think, further on in the budget process.
And we're certainly not looking to take away children who are already exceptional and doing but we can't just have some kids doing that work and others not because maybe they had a difficult time at some point in their life. We just want to make sure every kid has that foundation to reach their best.
Go back to that first slide.
Sure.
Really quick. Go all the way back to the beginning.
All the way back. Certainly.
That's it. That's all, right? That's kind of like what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I know certainly since I've been here, we should have the highest expectations for all of our kids, whether they're in a special class or whether they're, in a high order honors AP course.
I'm better. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Someone put those lights back on so I forgot my glasses so I can read this. Thank you. I'm going to jump in now to an obvious conversation that is unfortunately around what many are calling a COVID surge here. Not just here, all around, actually. The nation, New York, the island. And that surge prompted me to put together with my team a letter to the community this other day. We made we planned out and put out some what we'd call mitigation strategies to try and stem spread here in the schools and as a result, the community. The schools and the community, I must say, are two very different things. Community rates are 25% in Suffolk County. It's very alarming, but we are still not seeing as much spread or anywhere near that level of spread in our schools. We are masked. We are working at maximizing social distancing. A lot of what I put in my letter, one of the things I put in my letter, we were going to open windows, and that really alarmed some folks. And so I just want to calm those fears in terms of, I hope that we're using common sense in terms of opening windows. Tonight, we opened a window here, for example, a little bit because it's a little bit warm in here. And that's what we're looking to do. I'm not looking to throw open every window and freeze everyone out. If it's real cold out, let's crack it so we get a little fresh air in the room. If it's warmer out, let's make it a little bit open a little bit more. But the idea is not to freeze kids out. If kids are cold, want to wear a hat or a sweatshirt or go to a locker to get a sweatshirt because a particular room is a little bit colder than another, certainly we should allow kids to do that. But my plan is not to freeze staff out or kids out. Just circulate a little air as a mitigation strategy. Also in my letter, we had postponed some of our music and arts presentations. There are 4 elementary concerts we did not get to before the break, in part because kids were out, 4th and 5th graders, and that has happened again. I did not want to do something that's going to bring a lot of people together in close proximity, so I worked with our music folks, and we're planning on those presentations in person. That was a key for me and for them as well, that they want the presentations to be in person. We could have live streamed and kept them on, but having been at a couple of those concerts this past season and seeing those kids live on stage for the first time, many of them had not been on stage before. Seeing that in person, I wanted to hold on to that. So we're looking at planning on moving those to the first weeks of February and making sure that those happen kind of by hook or by crook. I told our music folks, even if we have to split it so 4th is one night and 5th is another night to knock down numbers or things like that, or spread it out more. Put it in a bigger space. We use East Auditorium if we have to. Just figure out a way to get it. But we wanted kids still being able to be live. And so those things were postponed, certainly not canceled. Sports are still on. Our after-school activities are still on. Sports still is allowing spectators. We can have spectators at our events. I did write in that we would have live stream, and our live stream links are on our athletics page, right, Patty? You sent me that the other day. There's several live stream links, and So I did write that in the letter in hopes that some people, if they want to partake in live stream, then certainly they should do that to watch the events, but they are welcome in person as well. Speaking of live stream, I will transition right into a conversation about quarantine support. We've spoken several times about quarantine support and what that model looks like in this district. It varies in many districts. Our model was an hour of after-school support for folks at the elementary or secondary level, led by the classroom teacher or a teacher. Given the current status in the world or state of the world in terms of numbers of quarantine cases, we will be transitioning to a live stream model, in particular at the secondary level. So any students that are on a COVID quarantine only, not my family's going to Disney, while we're down there, we want to live stream in, or COVID quarantine only. We are going to live stream those classes. We're going to do that effective Monday. Teachers want to start tomorrow, they can start tomorrow. Some have the ability to do that already. The cameras are already in place. They know how to do it. They did it last year. We do have some new folks. We do have our tech people putting together a one-page kind of quick fix on how to get things up and running. So that may take a couple of days, but everyone will start by Monday. In particular, at the secondary level, that will be the live stream. That will be the COVID, the quarantine support will be live streamed from now on to secondary level. The elementary level can do that as well. They can live stream as well. The initial model I'd still like to see there is based on the model that we have now. I've gotten more feedback positive there around that 1 hour after school with a teacher and a kid or several kids in their class, as opposed to having a 6-year-old try to sit on live stream for 6-7 hours trying to listen to the teacher. And this is a window into the classroom. This is not back and forth interaction, anything like that. And could you imagine, again, a 6-year-old with a window into class? That's very difficult. So because it splits the teacher's vision, attention, we all know, we've gone through this many times before, but just the numbers are so great. We are going to start live streaming. There is an MOA, a memorandum of agreement, on the agenda for our board tonight. I hope that they will approve it and support it. Our teachers are prepared, our administrators are prepared, and we are going to move into that realm for academic support for our quarantined, COVID-only quarantined students. I don't know, maybe I'll just keep going and then we'll ask overall questions. I have one more thing I wanted to just touch base on, and that is test kits. During the break, governor had announced we're going to give out test kits. We're going to test every kid and staff member and everyone before we get back from the break. And that scared the heck out of me. I almost said a different word, Matthew, but I stopped myself. That scared me because I didn't have any test kits. We need 12,000 test kits. I love test kits for my parochial and my UPK and my staff as well. So where is all this? And so we actually, I was able to sit in on a Zoom with the governor, and it came down to we are going to get everyone test kits for their students, their enrolled students. So we have approximately 12,000 students, and those test kits did arrive in our district. Great majority of them, I believe it was Monday, Tuesday, and we have them in place now. Our team acted immediately, put a form together, a Google form, so that parents who want to partake in this can come and get test kits for their kids. The test kits are for the kids. They are for, if you have 2 kids registered, 2 test kits for you. The pickups are Thursday evening, starting tomorrow evening, and Friday. They are from 4 to 7. They are at 6 locations throughout the district. We chose the locations based on, hopefully you could drive right up, get test kits. We'll check off the names, make sure we have the list of names of people that are going where. It's by alphabetical in terms of breaking down A through L. We'll do this time, and M through, you know that piece. So takes quite a bit of coordination, right? We have a little city here that we're trying to run, and so we're not just can't just go outside with a box and hand out 12,000 test kits. So it takes a little time to put that together. I want to thank our clericals and many people who are coming together, nurses, custodians, security, to work at these sites to help deliver these important test kits to our parents and our school community. Please bring an ID, right, Ms. Trombetta? That's what they need to bring, an ID. We'll have a checklist there with names for people. And we ask that you come, those that want them. Again, that registration took place over these last 2 days. What we'll do is, I would imagine we'll have some kits left over. Not everyone will get them. We will bring them together, measure out how many more we have, and then we will leave test kits at the 15 locations for Johnny went to the isolation room at 8:30. He didn't feel well, and he has symptoms. Mom comes pick him up. We're going to hand him a test kit to go with him. There's an issue at home. Parent wants to come and pick up a test kit because she didn't send child in today because the child wasn't feeling well. Come pick up a test kit for that child. And again, take that home and test the child. So any, again, that were left over, we'll make sure that go in the building. So if you didn't get it in this first run or couldn't come these first 2 days, we'll make sure that there is access to them in our buildings going forward. One last note about the test kits, and please don't roll your eyes or blame me. But my understanding is that the test kits have an expiration stamped on them for January 31st. Others may have seen this or heard this. I am told that these are not like the mozzarella sticks that you're not supposed to eat after, a certain date or whatever. These test kits have an extension, a true extension, right, Patty? You told me this. It's 3 months. It's official. It's not just, we didn't just make it up. Officially, someone bequeathed unto the test kits, right, this additional 3-month time. I don't know how, but please don't roll your eyes and say, look at Sachin, look at Pelletieri. Guy gave us test kits to expire in 2 days or something like that. Please, that was not our intent. That is not what we tried to do, but I believe that is what happened, and you don't have to run out and start testing everyone to use up the kits. Say again? Thank you, Patty. Each kit does have 2 tests, so you can test once and then test. Sometimes test too early, right? Right away we test, and then there's nothing there, and then a day or so later you might test again and then find that there's a result. So that's the story about live streaming, my report. I'm sorry for its length, and test kits as well, and I'll welcome any questions.
Mr. Scavo, then Mr. Reynolds.
It's regarding quarantining. Student is showing symptoms that has to go for a COVID test. Obviously can't come to school because whatever he has, had headaches and classic COVID symptoms. Are we providing them with live streaming support as well? Providing they have something from a doctor saying that we recommend that, this child stay home pending the results of the test.
COVID in the home, documentation of that, a note from a doctor that says this child should be home until that time. We should be incorporating them into our live streaming. If there's any particular specific nuance to any of that, please contact me or our building principal. We'll work through it.
I did have another question, but it'll come back, I'm sure.
Mr. Reynolds, go ahead, please.
Great. With regards to the MOA,
Yes,
there's no fee to that, right? We're not paying any more to have live streaming?
that's yes, sir. That's correct. There is no.
Just wanted for the community, just to kind of set that expectation, because there is some narrative out there that the teachers are being paid extra for this.
I want to thank the teachers for working with
I
us
read
on
this. I didn't
this,
see
but
a
there
fee. I
was
just wanted it to be
there's
confirmed.
no, I commend them for their work on this and jumping in on this. I understand some people were eager to do it already,
Great.
but there's no pay for that.
Great. No, and we thank our teachers for being
Yes.
flexible there, right? Just a couple more questions with regards to the live streaming. Last meeting, I asked about the current, one-on-one personal instruction. My question was it a systematic issue or pockets where people weren't getting it? I think it came back with sort of pockets, right? Do you feel that's still the case? Like, what didn't work with that? Are we going to live streaming just because of volume right now? Or did that other didn't work?
If we had that's really a good question. A part of it was the immediacy of this was I walked in and like, we got to do this. It's just the numbers were just like, we can't keep up. I still believe one-to-one with a teacher over a period of time, whether it was 1 hour, and we started with 1 hour, and then we did say, look, we'll go back and look at other cases. We started to actually come up with a model where we would do more hours, or we added. Mr. Picarello brought up the AP students were not getting certain things. So I said, okay, we're going to go back. The next day, we went back, started fixing these things. So I think we could have, again, evolved into a program that was a good one.
Right.
I think it was a good program. Again, at the elementary level, I'm concerned about live streaming and what that looks like. So we will still try to do the quarantine support kind of as it exists based on numbers. But the immediacy of what my concern was just numbers are just too
Right,
much
because
right
the
now.
quality, I think, is better on the more of the localized instruction versus live stream, right?
Mhm.
So the expectation for the community should be, again, it's just a one-way mirror, view into the classroom. There's
Yep.
not a lot of interaction, right? So I just want to set that expectation.
And I'll say this as well. We'll look at it again, right? Every time we do something, I don't just put my head back
Right.
under the desk there, right? We have to make sure that we're looking at everything that we do and see if we
Because
can
I did my
evolve
own
and make it
research.
better.
I polled high schoolers to say what worked. Some didn't really care for the live stream and they kind of turned it off and did what they had to do. So just again, setting the expectation. So I get it with the numbers.
Mhm.
And if this is what the community wants, let's give this a shot. Hopefully people get what they're expecting, right? Or they want.
Yes.
And just one last question. When they're eligible for the live stream, how do they enact it? Because there's been some sort of concern about a lag time with getting some of that other remote support. So, and it kind of almost tags into what Rob had just said, right? How do we get them connected? How do they get the link?
Like the
Because
next day.
we can't have them sitting around for days waiting
Yeah,
for a
no,
link,
no,
right?
no.
So,
So just as we did last year, this was coordinated through the kid that came through the report gets entered, it gets sent to the teacher. I mean, but this is something that doesn't require back and forth or a conversation or finding someone or the first person saying, no, I don't want to. So now we got to find another person or I can't. And so then we have to find another person. This is much more instantaneous and should be done. I think, Patty, we got it down to where we were doing it that same day, right? I mean, that next day, teachers have the code that they put into their Google Classroom so only their students can get it. And that's important too, that we don't share those codes with anyone or have that became this popular thing, people dropping into people's classes and things like that. So this should be much more instantaneous than anything that we were able to do with the quarantine academic support.
great, thank you. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so now to follow up on Mr. Scavo, Mr. Reynolds. So if a child is sick and they're staying home and they go for a PCR test, and let's say they come back and they say they have like influenza A, and so now they're going to be out for a full week due to, the flu, having the flu, so they're not going to get any instruction while they're staying home, because again, we don't want sick kids in school. And even some who are waiting home to get the PCR test, they, as everybody knows, there could be a long lag time between having an appointment and going for the test. But if they're symptomatic, like anybody who has a cough or anything like that, we don't want them in the schools. So I think there has to be, I'm not saying if kids are away on vacation, but if they're home legitimately sick and we're trying to stop a spread, and that's our goal, kids are going to wind up coming to school sick if they're not going to get the quarantine support. So that's one of my concerns with that. Then in the elementary school, I agree. I think for young students, it would be better to have the 1 hour instruction. But again, if they're not getting it or some pockets are not getting anything, then live stream is better than nothing.
Agreed.
And then as Sabrina had brought up last time, kids this time around who are getting this COVID strain, or some of them are really sick. My kids got it this Christmas and they were both sicker than they were when we had it last year. So I couldn't picture them, like when I looked at them, even getting up and logging in at that point. So I think it also has to be flexible and fluid. And but kids that are just home on quarantine that feel fine, I think having them be able to log in and be a part of their classroom and the instruction that's going on when you're home and you're not sick and you're just quarantined, that keeps them engaged and good. And then my other thing regarding the test kits. So again, I think everybody was confused thinking that Sachem, like we saw all over social media, dropped the ball because we didn't get the test kits out to everybody before January 3rd to test, which again was the governor's plan. She announced a plan without having any input or getting the test to all the districts in New York State. And again, it's still not our plan. It's her plan to give out the test kits. So we don't know what their necessarily her intention is to use them at this point. Do we? Or if it's the test to stay, that hasn't even been adopted yet.
Correct. The intention was not test to stay. Could we use them for that? Certainly. If there are some that we still have behind that don't get distributed, we could. I'm hearing that guidance is changing behind the scenes. 5-day essential workers now. Teachers can come back after 5 days as essential workers. I'm hearing they're going to allow perhaps students to do that as well, or the general population. Like there's so much changing now that I don't know what the plan is exactly, which is disturbing, certainly.
Right.
My understanding is that we're going to give the tests to parents who want to use them because they had a hard time finding them in stores and things like that.
Correct.
That's-
And again, some parents aren't going to want to test their
That's
kids.
correct.
So for the governor to announce a plan and not anticipate that there are going to be people that don't want to test their kids no matter what. And that's their choice. That's their parents' choice. So I just wanted you to make it clear that this wasn't a Sachem plan. This was a plan laid out by the governor without thinking about the implementation of the plan.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that we are a big district. We are a small city, right? We can't just drive over in my car and pick up some tests and then hand them out at the school door, right? We're very different,
Thank you very much.
of course.
Mr. Scott, you want to finish, and then we'll go into Mr. Baumann.
Just, Chris, just for clarity, this live streaming plan is not for kids that just don't feel like going to school on a Monday. You have to have some type of documentation that says, hey, you know what? The recommendation of our medical practitioner is to stay home, okay? Kids that just don't want to wake up on a Monday are not going to be given that code, okay, because they don't want to come into school on a Monday or a Friday.
Mr. Scavo, that's correct. And it must be COVID related. We'll have a discussion maybe another time, another forum, more ideas around things, but this plan is for COVID related doctor direction, quarantine direction based on COVID.
And just the one last thing, more of a comment than anything. Having kids in the school, oftentimes I'll pick their brains at dinner time, and I know that sometimes our staff comes under fire for not providing, quality instruction and live stream, or understand it. Sometimes by the time the teacher finds out that a kid is out on quarantine, 2 or 3 days have gone by, and they're not even aware that the child's on quarantine. But one thing I learned is that many hundreds of our staff members have been providing live streaming over the last several months, even when they weren't asked to, only because they cared enough about the students to make sure that they didn't fall behind. Because to any teacher that really takes their job, professionally, they don't want their kids to fall behind because it creates more work for the teacher. So I just wanted more of a statement to commend those teachers that really have taken the step to, provide that live streaming, weeks ago. When students were out, now that we have an MOA, it's going to be a standard practice, but we've been doing it. And, I know that sometimes people come and they have an isolated issue where the kid's not getting the service, but I just don't want to paint the picture with a broad brush that our entire staff wasn't doing it. I think we have dedicated wonderful teachers that they really do care about their kids. So just want to commend them for that.
Agreed, and thank you.
Mr. Baumann.
I think I forgot my question. Okay, so I agree with the elementary, that concept. My fifth grader experienced it, and that 1 hour a day was huge, and so it worked out well. I'm asking that we consider that there may be some special ed kids that would benefit from the same thing, secondary. To consider. And maybe it's on an individual basis. Maybe there are some special ed secondary students that would benefit better from that one-on-one, from that quarantine support, and expecting them to sit in front of a computer all day, just like you don't expect an elementary student to sit all day in front of a computer. I think it's something we should consider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sabrina, please.
I hope I remember everything.
You guys got to write down your questions. That's what I do all the
know.
time.
I think I have a
always
greatest
if I don't
memory
write
of
it
all.
down, it didn't happen. So you kind of.
So the first thing is, when they are live streaming, are they live streaming into every single class?
So as we did last year, we'll have a similar schedule. I believe we maybe started with phys ed, did like a warm up or something, but then that was it because they were going into the other areas. But our main core classes, yes. Art and music, and yes, right?
Okay.
Yep.
I just want to make sure, because if a child's trying to get into gym and I can't get into that, my son would freak out, and they're like, no, we're not
So
live
let's
streaming this
let's-
today. I just want.
Just flesh that out a little bit, somebody, for me. What's phys ed going to look like? What did it look like last year? It was an introduction, right? Like the warm up.
It was an
and then-
introduction, and then the students were given something to do independently,
Okay.
but the other special areas were streamed.
And-
Right, I'm just asking because I know some districts, including
Yep.
mine, only, at least on certain levels, only academic. So music, art, things like that. Some districts have decided not to live stream that. So I just want to clarify. So we are, if they're not going to be live streaming, they'll be notified or given an assignment like phys ed. We don't expect phys ed to live stream. I mean, I don't think a kid wants to sit there and watch other kids playing in the gym. But they could do, I know last year they got some type of thing to read, a video to watch, and some questions. What does it end up being? 1 or 2, 2 days, 3 days of gym because it's every other day anyway. So
Right.
it is every class, generally speaking.
Mhm.
Okay. That was the first one. Number 2, can we lay out in a document, whether it's by school, the process? So you get a COVID test positive, the link, I know the link is on there. I'm in the schools. I know the process. I know everywhere to go. My kids were in it the next day. We were scheduled, good to go. But I'm an educator. I know where everything is. Not every parent knows that. So could we say this is the link where you go to fill out? Give them the Suffolk County link where they can get a notice of quarantine, a notice of isolation. Like I've been sharing that link with so many people, but so many people still don't know that they can go to that link, get that paperwork, and they email it to you immediately. So that they get that email, send it to who? Do I send it to the nurse? Do I send it to the AP? Do I send it to the principal? And I'm talking about people who are not being quarantined by the school. So mom or dad, grandma, grandpa, they've been exposed at home, and now they're on quarantine. We don't know that they're going to be quarantined. We have to get that documentation or from the doctor. Where do all those documents go so that we can get these kids into live stream or on the elementary, get them on a Google Meet ASAP? Just so that we don't have all over social media, 1,000,001 texts and emails of where do I go? What do I do? And there's tons of misinformation out there. And it's so frustrating to me because I want to respond to everybody, but I can't. And I'm sending links to this one. I'm sending them to here. I'm sending them to there. And we all probably are, right? So I just want a document. Step 1, here's the link you fill out for the school. Step 2, here's where you could get some forms if you don't have one from your doctor. Step 3, if you're in Seneca, you send it here. If you're in North, here's where you send your documents. So we can get these kids checked off and ready to live stream within the next day, if they're not quarantined by the school district. So I'm just asking if we
Well,
could
if they
do
were
something like that.
quarantined in either regard, so we'll have to get the team together because Kristen, you have a part of this, Erin, you have a part of this, Patty, you have a part of this, and we can kind of try to create this one-stop shop. We'll throw it up on our COVID information page, like we have a lot of information there. And my child has COVID. Now what do I do?
Right.
Kind of that would be it. Or my child's been quarantined. Now what do I do?
And who do they
And we'll
reach?
put-
Because sometimes by the building, it's different.
Mhm.
Like I know in the elementary school building my daughter goes to, the nurse is on top of everything. Whereas in the middle school, we're sending things to the AP. So where are we supposed to be sending these documents so they could say, hey, turn on the live stream for this student, we're good to go. And we're not waiting 3 or 4 days.
That
I think that was one of the biggest concerns with this quarantine support was the time from when they reported it to when they were getting support. I believe that should be I know my district, it's within 24, longest 48 hours, as long as we're getting that documentation from the parents, but some parents don't know where. The husband tested positive, but now what do I do? Right? So then they need kind of that location of where they could go through and get those documents. So if that's something we could just put out, so we alleviate that, what do I do, and get the kids moving, less loss of time in the classroom.
Understood.
The other thing is too, IEPs, I agree. If there are certain students who on a secondary level might benefit from an individual, because my concern is meeting the IEPs, right? Legally, we have to give these kids services. We have to give them modifications. Sometimes on a live stream setting, you're not going to be able to do that, especially if it's just a window, right?
Mhm.
You can't redirect. You can't make sure they understand the assignment. That maybe for certain students, not all, that they might benefit better from that. And I think that goes for an elementary student too. Like you said, a 6-year-old sitting in front watching their kids in class, they'll benefit one-to-one or a small group instruction on a Google Meet. So if that's something you could consider or look at,
Yes.
is a possibility.
Some of the services we can live stream and some we can't and get made up when the child comes back. They get additional services to make up for that lost time. But this is something for us to look at.
Right. And same thing. I just, being a teacher, I just want to thank the teachers. I always say to my, I'm in it. I get it. A lot of us are in it. There's no right or wrong answer. We just have to do what's best for the kids. And, just thank you for that. Mr. Iserni and I had a conversation while you guys are speaking about something. I'll let you. Do you want to bring up your thought?
So, Chris, the CDC guidance right now, and our guidance is a fully vaccinated student. I guess fully vaccinated defined as like 2 weeks after they finish their second course or whatever course of vaccine. If they're asymptomatic, they don't quarantine. Right?
That's correct.
So a fully vaccinated student, if asymptomatic or no symptoms or not having the virus, they would never be eligible for live streaming.
They don't have to quarantine. I understand what's happening. Some parents are super uber concerned, as are many of us, right? So even though the child's vaccinated, I hear about breakthrough cases. I hear
Well, that's
about
not asymptomatic. though.
concerned. So I'm just going to keep them home. And so that's where I said, if there's a nuance to this, like we have to have that conversation. We want kids in school.
Right. Well, I don't want to
We
discourage, if a parent decides they want to vaccinate their child, I don't want them to be discouraged to do it because they can't.
No, I'm not even talking about vaccine, unvaccinated. You never even hear me say anything. I'm going to say, we want kids in school as much as possible, no matter. I hear the guidance around vaccines are going to change now. Fully vaccinated is going to mean the 2 courses plus the booster. And then if you're in that situation, you can do X. And then if you're in this situation, you can do Y. And if you're in this situation, you can do Z. That's what I'm talking about. This stuff is changing so fast. And things happen. For example, I put in my letter, my update. It's still 10 days for kids. It's still a 10-day quarantine for kids. Parents were telling us, well, it's 5 days now. I heard it, I read it, I saw it. But New York State did not accept those changes from CDC. New York State accepted, and that's what Suffolk County has to accept it as well.
Again, but that's a symptomatic person.
Yes, sir.
So,
But yeah, no, if you meet that criteria, you don't have to quarantine. That's right. Some people still want to keep their kids home.
Chris, I think Mike's asking, is
Right.
that kid eligible for the live stream?
Well,
Yeah,
just because right now we're seeing that it is spreading in vaccinated
Mhm.
families, that a child is vaccinated. I could name a few people close to us that this has happened. And they're like, well, my child right now is fine, but 3 people in the house who are vaccinated or not have it. I send them to school. They could be asymptomatic, but who knows spreading? I know we're wearing masks and separating. But what if that family says, listen, I want to err on the side of caution. We do have it in our house, not just a quick exposure at school for 5 minutes. We're talking about living with the person
Yeah.
who is currently positive.
So-
Is that something that could be?
well, that was going to lead me to my other point.
Right, that was
Yeah,
our conversation.
I'm starting to get nervous because we're carving out what ifs, right?
I know.
And my students used to do this in my law class all the time. Well, what if he had this, or what if he had that?
Well, that leads you to the test kits too. I mean, are we going to allow the test kits to be used to send the kid back?
That's an easier one. That's a yes, right, Kristen? We talked about this. We didn't used to do that. Governor opened up that door now, and everyone's stepping through it. How can I give out test kits and then turn around and say, well, you can't use that test?
I agree.
Yeah. So that's changed.
Yeah, I was just waiting. Rob and then Laura, if Mike was done. Okay, please.
Is it on?
Yes.
So Chris, just piggyback on what Ms. Isernia said, if a child is exposed in the house, even though they're vaccinated, and they have a letter from a medical practitioner saying that our recommendation is for him to or her to stay home for a period of time, okay, under my care, will we accept that for a student to be eligible for live streaming?
So to me, that ups the ante, Kristen, right, in terms of documentation.
It definitely ups the ante on documentation, because whether it's a student or it's a staff member, we're following the Suffolk County Department of Health's guidance on what a direct contact is. And we do have staff who are vaccinated, and they have children or spouses or someone else that they may have that becomes positive. But technically, they're not considered a direct contact under Suffolk County Department of Health. Now, there are instances where someone might have some other type of medical issue that's an underlying that we have to then get more granular with. But when we talk about the strict regulations of what is a direct contact and what is a mandatory quarantine or isolation, we are following that. I mean, granted, we have folks who are always very cautious of one another, as we all need to be. Sometimes we have to navigate those challenging conversations about, I'm going to self-quarantine myself because I'm concerned about things. And we also have to be mindful that we can't have everybody self-quarantining themselves. We just have to give them information and say, if there's a medical basis for something else, then we need to get that additional documentation because we're not your healthcare provider. That's why their doctors are there, and they may have an alternative underlying condition that impacts their ability to do something. It's a case-by-case basis.
So in a situation where a child receives a letter from a doctor saying that our recommendation is for that child to quarantine.
I don't think we would turn around and say, well, I refute that doctor's recommendation. You know, if there was a concern, we have a wonderful Dr. Nussbaum who works with us, our chief medical officer, is that the title? And
That's right.
we run things by him all the time. So we could, if there was a concern or an issue, but I would welcome that type of documentation to support what we're doing and so we can work with our families.
Mrs. Slattery, please.
Just to, again, piggyback on Mr. Isernia, if you're vaccinated and you live in a house where family members have tested positive and have COVID and you have symptoms, then you have to quarantine.
There we are. Yep.
Yes.
Symptoms. Yes.
So to me, it's all, I mean, I'll share a personal story. My family got COVID. I got COVID again on Christmas Day, but my home test came negative and my PCR test came positive. But I knew I had it. I didn't care what my home test said because I was running a fever and sick and couldn't get out of bed. But so it wouldn't have mattered what my home test said. I wouldn't have gone to work or, you know, if I was a student, gone to school. So some of it has to come where people are responsible. You know, if you live in a household and your family has COVID and you have symptoms, you probably have it. So
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that, Laura, and talk about symptoms and responsibility. We have still Monday, we put out staff Tuesday. They came back Monday. They were put out Tuesday because kids came in Monday who were awaiting PCR results. It's got to stop. Please, and look at the camera here. Please, if your child has symptoms, your child doesn't feel well, you don't feel well, stay home, keep your child home, whatever that takes. But please don't send in children who are awaiting PCR results. It's still happening. It's still putting staff out and other kids out, exposing them. We can't, it's got to stop. We've got to
Mr.
work
Isernia?
together.
But Chris, just to follow up on that, asymptomatic people with possible contact who use the test kit, comes back negative, they're good to come back.
Asymptomatic. Yes. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Anyone else?
Kristen, you made Kristen's eyes pop
Yeah,
up.
could you just
so I wanna
clarify
be careful.
asymptomatic that had direct contact?
Well, an asymptomatic
vaccinated.
I'm sorry, I should add fully
Vaccinated.
vaccinated. I should have fully vaccinated person or student, direct contact, no symptoms. They don't have to quarantine.
No, yes, they just have to monitor themselves.
Right.
But if the parent tested them, they had the test kit, runny nose, right? Yeah, asymptomatic would be no runny nose. Okay.
Well, let's say have allergies or something
Yep,
else. That,
yep.
you know, can-
Yes, right. If you're waiting PCR, though, do
We
not.
broke that 7:30 barrier, John. Anyone else? Sir? Dr. Peltieri?
I'm good. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I was the sir you were referring to. I
Yes, sir.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Letter F on the top of page 2 is the approval of minutes for the December 15th, 2021 regular meeting. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Slattery, second by Mr. Isernia. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Number 2 is visitors. There's 2 sections for visitors. Everyone will be given 3 minutes. The first section is for agenda items. This is an agenda item. Mrs. La Dolce, please. Yeah. Just if you could hit that button so the green light is on, just so we can hear you.
It's on.
Okay, awesome.
So I guess my first question is, I don't
Sit if you
know,
like.
I don't know what I'm allowed to touch. I don't know the rules with,
You can touch anything.
Touch whatever you want.
there's rules everywhere. Don't touch, where may, I don't know. So I received that email that I guess, I don't know,
Community update that I.
community update. I don't know if you drafted that yourself, if there's help. I don't know how many of you have children or grandchildren at an elementary level. So many things in that were a problem for me as a parent of a 6-year-old who, let me start off by saying, loved school when she first came here. She'd never been to preschool. She'd never, nothing, because that was when COVID struck. She loved school. loves Winona. We had an incident with a teacher's aide who traumatized her, and now it's costing me $60 twice a week for therapy. Let me say that. But one thing that stuck out in that letter to me was snack by row. I don't know who wrote this. I don't know if it's you. I mean, no disrespect. I know you're the big guy here, the capo, so to speak.
It's Il Capo di Tutti Capo, technically.
Capo di
That's what
tutti-
my dad said, but please, I am
I
not
know.
that guy at all. All
Not
right?
you.
Not that guy at
Not
all.
you. It wasn't me.
But I did write that.
You did write that.
Yes.
So, and I mean no disrespect. I really don't. However, that's a problem for me because you cannot expect a 6-year-old to sit there with a mask on when they don't understand what in God's name is going on to begin with right now. There's so much inconsistency. You cannot expect a 6-year-old to sit there with a mask on and watch another one eat. Now, my child is blessed enough to be able to have as many meals as she wants any time of day. Some of these children, unfortunately, we don't know what's in our district. Some of them may not eat. You don't know that. They might look forward to that meal every day. And now they have to sit there and wait. So I need some clarification
Sure,
on that,
sure.
if you
Yeah,
don't mind,
that's-
because that's
We don't, so I've seen this in action. That's why I was comfortable with writing that, because I've spoken to principals and I've seen it in action. And actually, kids are engaged in this section here while those kids are having their snack and have their mask down. And then they flip, these kids are engaged. So there's no like, I'm looking at Alex, you know, mom says you got to have food for everybody, right? I'm sure everyone, you got to bring enough for everybody. There is no, and I assure you of this, my sitting here staring at someone across another row while they're eating their peanut butter, and I got to look at them and I'm starving in my belly. It's not how it goes at all. And I've been in class and seen that, where I'm engaged, I'm doing this, I'm doing my cutting, I'm doing whatever it is at whatever grade level, at whatever time, and I'm doing something actively while someone else might be having that snack. And again, that's a suggestion. That's not a mandate. It's an opportunity, because now, Alex, I have my mask off, Alex has his on, then Rob can have his off. So it's just another way by which we can keep that social distancing in place, so our masks aren't all down at the same time. It's not mandated. It's not something we have to do. We don't sit there and make them, punish them or tease them or show them food or anything like that. It's just another means, another strategy to try and get us through this. That's what that is.
and I don't know if that strategy is effective. I mean,
Okay.
who knows how many masks, and I don't, like I said, and you don't know what's going through the mind of a 6-year-old. You don't. So that was where I had some concern with that, because it just, to me, it was like, really, like snack by row. I'm gonna wait for Sally and Nikki to finish their snack, and
Yeah.
then I get to have some chips. Like, you serious right now? You know. But the other thing that stuck out to me was, like you said, the windows open, and I appreciate your clarification on that, because I know some rooms can be warmer than others. You can crack a window. You can afford to do that. Some rooms can be cooler. Please don't crack a window. I get that. You know, dress appropriately. I hope no one's sending their kid to school dressed to freeze, but you don't know. You know what I'm saying? And I worry about them on buses. I worry about them everywhere. There's so much inconsistency in the world right now with this virus and everything that's going on. And so many things in that letter. I think that there was so much good intent in it, but I think that it really needs, I don't know how much parental input goes into these letters, but I think we need a little more as a parent myself.
Okay. Thank you. They are written by a team. It's rare I send anything out that hasn't had eyes on by either my board or certainly my team here. And we wear many hats. I have a middle school, I have a 9th grader, 12th grader. Aaron has younger, like we right, Kristen, we all talk about it publicly. So we all wear those hats when we have those conversations. And I will tell you that everyone in this room here facing you is up all night, almost every night, worrying about our kids, all of our kids, because they're our kids.
That is the most important to me.
Yes.
You
Thank
know?
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
hearing me.
coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 3 on the bottom of page 2 is business items. Letter A is the disposal of district property. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Reynolds, seconded by Mr. Scavo. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Number 4 on the bottom of page 2 is personnel teachers, consent agenda A through J. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Mrs. Pickowitz. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Please.
We'd like to recognize some probationary appointments this evening. Joining us today is Diana Gadun. She is one of our talented educators here who is being moved forward in a probationary capacity for all the hard work, homegrown talent that we have here that we'd like to recognize her this evening. So congratulations. In addition, we also have some, what I like to say, talent that we've been able to acquire through other areas. I always like to see candidates who come through that have lots of experience in other capacities in other school districts, and that allows us to have the opportunity to share that with our students and their families. So we'd like to recognize also Nicholas Quad, who is, I believe, out on a live stream feed right now, joining us as a new speech teacher, and 2 teacher assistants, Lori Latiz and Ariella Argelopoulos. Congratulations.
Letter 5 in the middle of page 6 is personnel support staff, consent agenda A through H. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Slattery, seconded by Mr. Bauman. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Please.
In 10 days, Mr. Bill Herman, one of our head custodians at High School East, is officially retiring. We'd like to thank him for all of his hard work with the East custodial team and working with the East administration, students, and staff. He does plan on working after retirement, but we do thank him for his years of dedication and hard work with us, and congratulations.
Number 6 on page 9 is contracts, consent agenda A through C. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Isernia, seconded by Mr. Scavo. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Number 7 on the bottom of page 9 is Committee on Special Education, consent agenda A through B. Can I please have a motion by Mr. Bauman, seconded by Mr. Isernia? Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Number 8 is donations on page 10. A donation by Chess Sanity, a chess club, to the chess club at Sachem North. Can I please have a motion? Motion by Mr. Isernia, seconded by Mr. Reynolds. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Please.
Thank you.
Number 9 is monthly reports. Do we have any reports? Please, Ms. Laura.
So just regarding the legislative committee.
Yep.
When we ended our last meeting, December 15th, I think it was, we had discussed adding the 3 more members to the legislative committee.
Are they not on here? I apologize if they're not. I didn't notice.
Right, so I had asked Allison, so what I'm asking her now, because I wanted to set up a meeting for next week, and I would like those members to be included.
Should have been on here. They should have been on.
Right.
Yeah, they're not on. I did look up the 3 members, so I had just emailed them to both you and Mr. Reynolds to see them.
Okay, so if we could just say their names now, so we can vote and approve them now, so when I send out the email to have the meeting next week.
Chris, is that, just Laura, I'm
Right.
asking just to make sure. I'm not
Yeah.
asking to
No,
doubt
I
what you're
know.
saying. Chris, I'm new Chris. I'm asking if that's appropriate and can we do that? Okay.
Nothing wrong with on the fly, making a motion is something that is urgent and you want to get started.
You can read them.
Perfectly appropriate.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, so Vinny.
You have the names
I've
in
got
front
the
of you?
names. Thanks, Allison.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's Christopher Buckley, Dayton Colgan,
Mhm.
and Elisa Roof.
So let's make a motion to
RUOFF.
approve those 3 names to put them onto the legislative committee. Can I please have a second? Seconded by Mr. Isernia. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is approved.
Wait, I'm gonna vote no on that, and the reason again, I'm
What?
voting no is because I believe there shouldn't be a limit on the number of community members on a committee. So I've said this before, so I'm voting no because for those that aren't on the committee, I just want that on the record, as I did for every other committee that we have.
Okay, great.
Thank you. And so anyway, we're gonna have the meeting meeting.
Yes. Correct. Yeah.
Right. So we're going to, I'll send out the email, Allison, if you sent the information, and we're going to have the meeting next
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please.
Two things. We have we just notified that Longwood Legislative Meeting, okay, is now gone virtual. And I know Ms. Esterni had put something out, or maybe I had a conversation with them, I can't remember. Suggested that we put together a question from the board that we want to ask our local officials. How we want to solicit that question. Do we want to go through our legislative committee? Do we want to, put questions forth? Oh, is it? Okay. Oh, it is for discussion. Okay. I guess the second question I have is, Chris, I know we had a district-wide security meeting. Maybe you could just update the board, and the board's updated, but the community on where we're going with lanyards and ID cards so that people out there understand at the secondary level what we're going to be requiring.
Did we give a report last time, Patty? Yeah, we are looking to purchase lanyards for all of our students. We are working to get in the printers so that we can print ID cards, replacement ID cards, and make sure that everyone has an ID card to start with, and students would have to wear them. We're actually working on I have a sample policy that I'll share with the board so that kids would have to wear their lanyard, wear their ID. Maybe it's a clip if they want, but anywhere on school grounds when they enter the premises.
And when will we be looking to start that?
As soon as we can get approval from a policy. It's interesting. Some districts don't have a board policy on it. They have individual school policies. I think we might be better served having a board-wide, a district-wide policy. Yeah. So we will get you a sample of that, and we can have a discussion around that for our.
Can we implement that as a practice prior to the formal approval of the policy? In other words, you have to
I
run
got
it
you.
through 2 hearings and then finalize.
Let me go back and reinforce and find out, because we were getting printers, we were getting ID card companies to look at things. Let me find out a date with that piece there before I say, yes, we can. Let me just get some information before we do that around a date when we could possibly make sure that every child has their ID.
Thank you. And that would be for secondary only.
Correct.
That was the recommendation. To enter the school bus as well.
Yeah, I believe the recommendation was on school grounds. They should have it with them at all time, but we didn't say necessarily show it to get on a bus. That's not what we had discussed, I didn't believe.
That was the recommendation of the committee, to have it.
So what happens when he doesn't have ID on the bus?
The backup was that the bus driver would have a list.
Well, I don't think we're implementing anything right now. I was just asking for an update.
Yeah, certainly.
That's the direction we're going.
I can certainly get the information necessary to answer your question, Mr. Scavo, and come up with some information as to when we might be able to implement. And then we could have a planned board discussion at a next board meeting if you want, about buses and the like. Good. That works for everybody? Okay.
We can put that on future for the next one. Anyone else have an update? No? Okay. There's nobody for the second public comment. The board discussion items, we could talk about the Longwood Legislative. Mike? You want to go? Did you push it?
When I saw that email, I just suggested that this will be our last opportunity. If we want to submit a question, this will be the chance to do it. So I'm open to, the one question I came to mind was what was going to be the status and how was a test to stay going to be implemented, and were they going to approve that? But I don't know if that's actually developing as we speak. So does anybody else have any ideas for questions?
so
Vinny and then Laura.
We have one question, right?
You could submit more than one, but you're probably going to get picked for one.
Yeah.
If you get picked for one.
All right,
Yeah.
so every other district's going to ask about these types of things. So what is it that we need from our elected officials outside of the box, outside of COVID, right? Is there anything else state aid wise, things like that? Because everybody's going to be asking the same questions. How do we stand out and ask a question that,
John, have
a
we
little bit more
gotten,
strategic thinking, right? That's all.
can I just ask Mr. O'Keefe, have we gotten any information about funds for full-day pre-K or half-day pre-K for next year?
No, the governor's executive runs have not been released yet.
So maybe that's something that we can ask
We
about?
should see them in the coming days.
That's.
There was some discussion about, a matrix as to, mask wearing, was one that I know popped up quite a bit. I think we were looking to, was a concern of a lot of different districts. I don't know if that's something that the board, wants to look at and ask our legislators as to whether or not there's a.
Yeah, I was
Laura,
thinking
please.
exactly like Alex, if that universal pre-K grant that all districts received, if that was going to continue, because again, that affects all our buildings, where the classes are. It has a big impact in
It affects a lot of
Sachem.
families, yeah.
And it affects a lot of families, and something if, the state and our elected officials, our legislators are going to continue to support having grants for universal pre-K, because that impacts Sachem on so many levels.
Maybe we can give two questions, because if we submit that as a question and then that comes out in the coming days before that, yeah, and then our question is kind of moot, so that we can have a second question.
I'll work with Ms. Florio about sending in that question, and then if it gets answered in the next day or so, can we contact them and say, hey,
Yeah.
we want to switch out that question for another question.
And I'm good with
It's just a suggestion.
yeah.
The board discussed.
Yeah. I don't know where everybody else is.
I liked Alex's question.
Thanks for pointing.
So we'll have, my wife hates pointing. We'll have that be our number one question. And is there any second question, or Mr. Scavo mentioned metrics in terms of when might we be able to, at one point in time, hopefully sooner rather than later, get these masks off everybody.
I like
That
that
could be
question.
a backup question.
Let me ask Mr. O'Keefe, is there anything that you need specifically from these guys that you would like to ask as it relates to budget, funding, things like that?
No, just to get the numbers as sooner than later, just so that we can plan properly. I mean, obviously, the longer we wait, the more difficult the process is. I don't anticipate any dramatic changes for Sachem in state aid funding. I assume foundation aid will be held flat. The expense-driven aids are all dependent upon what we spent in the prior year. So the formula is what the formula is. So, but the sooner that we get the numbers, then we can start making decisions about, we know that the CPI is going to be 2% this year, even though inflation was 6%. So we're restricted on the levy to grow only $4 million. So if state aid is flat, that basically gives us $4 million towards next year's budget, which we all know mathematically doesn't work.
Right. Okay.
I'm okay with the metric being the second question, but I don't know if that's where the majority of the board is okay with. Yeah.
So the first question would be
the UPK, and if we get that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The second question would be,
Yeah.
what metrics are we ever going to get metrics to decide locally whether or not masks are still necessary?
Yeah.
So I'll work with Allison on both those and make sure they go out.
Good. Does anyone have any future agenda items? Please, Mr. Isonia, Mrs. Pickowitz? I didn't even get the chance to turn my head yet. I saw hands fly up. Good.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Sale of property, can we get a
The
executive
Holbrook.
session update?
Okay. Sabrina?
We received a draft of the email that the letter we were going to send to the state.
Yep.
We squashed the conversation because we need to have it in public session. I had shared 2 letters that I had shared previously. I believe we received an email today from someone else who had shared from the district they work in, again, speaking about, again, metrics, mandatory vaccinations, etc. I still would like to write that letter. I know that the wording of the letter wasn't necessarily okay with certain people on the board, but I still think that as a board, we should be sending a letter that is demanding metrics, clarifications, things like that. So I just want to bring that up so we have that conversation and not put it off for another
Yeah, I mean, I'm good. I thought we agreed to write a letter. I didn't think it was up for debate on whether or not we were going to send a letter. I thought it was just kind of getting on the same page or close to the same page, or the majority of the people on the same page as far as the language. But again, just 2 seconds.
Right.
I just don't think it's appropriate to have the conversation over email without the public. The public already heard us say that we were writing a letter. To have the conversation over email, or to even, intimate that we weren't going to write a letter at all. We already agreed on that part. But go ahead, Laura.
Right. So I'm totally in favor of a letter. As I said, I'm in favor of a similar letter as the Bay Shore School District sent out. I'm not in favor of the letter that we got as a draft. I felt like that was nowhere near the sample letter that we got.
Please.
Yeah, just to follow up with Laura. So the letter that we did receive as a draft, the tone and tenor was not what we thought we were getting. I think it was angry. It was very confrontational. That's not the type of letter we should be sending out. I offered up edits. I think we still get the same message across, but without sort of the bravado, if you will, right?
Jim, please.
I am no longer in favor of writing any letter.
I will have been working with Mr. Venator. If there are any issues with that letter, that it was my fault, and we'll continue to work together to make sure that we get a letter that we're satisfied with. And again, draft, right? And continue to work through it with edits. Thank you for those edits from the other day. And we will craft a letter that the majority of the board, the board is comfortable with sending out.
Just quickly, I had no issue with the letter, only because I think we need to start being more demanding. At some point, we have to stop being nice and asking questions and hoping that we get answers. Like, these are our representatives: the governor, the health commissioner, our state senators, our state assembly people. We need answers. We can't continue to move forward without answers. We're the second largest public school in Suffolk County, like in the state. Give us what we need to help us run and help us make better decisions for our community. And at some point, we have to stop being nice about it. Please.
So if you notice my edits, they weren't nice. I think they were just a little more professional. Some of the language in that letter was very angry and disrespectful. So I think
Disrespectful to whom? The people that won't give us the answers, who we pay their salary
doesn't matter
to?
who it's disrespectful for. If we're going to put a letter out as a professional board, we shouldn't have some of the language in there that was in there, right? So I'm in total agreement.
I just think it's
I'm in
disrespectful
total
to
agreement
say
that
to
they
the
owe
people that wrote it.
They owe answers.
But Vin, you had a problem with writing the letter altogether. So
No, I
mean,
didn't.
there's really nothing wrong
No.
with the letter
Oh,
itself.
that's totally wrong. I'm on record for
Okay.
writing the letter.
Okay.
Go back and read the minutes, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Don't put words in my mouth.
Okay, just don't point.
I put the edits
It's
in
not-
there to make it a little more professional.
Okay.
All right, can I just chime in?
Yeah.
I 100% read that letter. I'm angry
Yeah.
at so many things. And I read it and you read my mind, okay? But I do understand we are a board that's representing a community. So I know my anger and frustration as a personal, that's an email I would probably send word for word directly to the governor, etc. I do agree that as a board, if we are going to agree on it, we do have to make sure everybody is generally okay with the wording and that. So I'm fine with changing. I agree. I was fine with it. It almost took every feeling inside me and I read it. I was like, yep. But then taking a step back, looking at the other emails, that we do have to make sure that this is what everybody on this board, because we do have to agree, as a majority to send that and the wording of it if we're going to say this is from the board. So we do have to edit it, but I have to say, it spoke to me 100%. I do have to say with the frustrations I have. I mean, it lends to the conversation we just had with quarantining. What do we do? What do we don't do? What are we doing? It's changing. Now you're not fully vaccinated. Now you are. So many things are changing. We need metrics. We need clarification. It's making school districts' heads spin on a constant basis. And it makes us look sometimes as teachers and administrators that we don't know what we're doing. But when we get different things every single day from the state, what are we supposed to do? You're changing things on a daily. So I just think the letter has to be firm at this point. They can't keep doing this to school districts because ultimately, who is it hurting? It's hurting the children.
So Sabrina, great. I'm with you 100%. And I think the edits I offered up were firm and asked exactly for an answer. It wasn't open-ended, as the letter that came back was very open-ended.
I mean,
Mine
how
was
many
very
letters?
direct. We want answers.
How many letters have we sent
You're not going to listen
before
anyway.
I was even
Right,
on the board,
sure.
right? Well, I asked Laura that. She sent me a whole slew of them. I asked Rob that. He sent me a whole slew. How many answers have we gotten?
I'll be honest, with you, you're not going to get an answer from the governor other than the formal, thank you for your letter. We have we have to take the health and safety of all of our New Yorkers. And they're going to send you that same formal letter that's sent to everybody else. But we should at least get letters back from our elected officials that represent our region.
Yeah.
We should. I know that, I've seen in other districts where there have been local senators and local assemblymen that have responded back to districts. I would hope that we receive something like that, because those are the people the governor are going to listen to. They're not going to listen to us.
And we've received that. Doug
Yeah,
Smith has
yes.
commented that we appreciate it. We put it on the record.
Absolutely.
We appreciate that.
The only thing, look, I'd be honest, and I understand where everybody comes from on the board. I thought that some of the language in the letter could have been tweaked a little bit, some word crafting, to maybe change some of the adjectives to get a point across and make it, maybe similar to like what we saw with Islip and what we saw with Bayshore. I think I just read one from Elwood, which was very, very good as well. But the only thing that I ask is that we don't have to keep coming back to the board every 2 weeks to approve it. Once there's 5 people on this board that say, hey, yeah, we're comfortable with the letter, we have to send it out, because we're just kicking the can down the road. We're just delaying the process. That's the only thing I ask.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have a list. Rob, Mike, and Matt. Excuse me, Rob just went. So Mike and Matt.
I think the letter needs to convey a tone of deep, serious concern, but not be alarmist, right? I actually had the same impression of the letter that Sabrina had. I said, oh, this brings up a lot of feelings, but then there are things in there that you say, well, we can't factually back some of that stuff up, right? The word hyperbole was used, which was accurate depiction. So you don't want to be an alarmist. You want to be deeply concerned. These are the things we need. Very straightforward, professional, like we said. What information we need, what answers we desire or demand, I guess you would say, but not in an alarmist tone, in a serious tone.
Matthew.
So I totally get what everybody's saying. I'm not opposed to like some edits here and there. I didn't really have a problem with the letter, to be honest with you. I found it passionate, and I don't want to edit the letter to a professional level where we lose the passion. No, okay. I'm just saying. Just let me finish.
But Vin, just let him talk.
Let
and
me
then
finish.
That's your opinion. That's his.
That's all I'm
opinion. Let him
saying.
finish.
I'm not opposed to it, your edits, but I don't want to tear Chris apart, because he sent us a draft for us to look at, and you start with something. But I wouldn't want to. It's not a business letter. This is education. This is about passion. So we want to make sure that these people hear what we're saying. That's all.
I agree.
You're misunderstanding the whole professional aspect of it. I think the letter that we redrafted, and we're looking for more inputs. Nobody else has offered any other inputs. But again, it was to the point. It was crisp. To Mike's point, we can't have hyperbole, statistics we can't back up. There was an ask in there, and we wanted answers. So I'm looking forward to the second draft. And let's see what we got.
Can we get that sooner than later? Because it should have. We want to get this out. Okay.
Could I just comment? I don't know the board well.
Yeah.
Obviously, I haven't been here in a long time. What my intent was, and I did the initial draft of it, based on, our conversations from the last board meeting, I could feel some of the passion, and I tried to express that passion. Maybe I went a little too far. I didn't feel like it was an angry letter, but I felt like a lot of people write letters without passion, and nobody listens to it. So I wanted to, get people's attention. So maybe I used some adjectives, cataclysmic, and a couple other adjectives that perhaps are too strong. So we could rework on that. But I just want to let you know that I intentionally got a little strong, because I wanted someone to feel the passion that was coming from the Sachem School District, because I do believe that there would be a significant, a reaction if certain things happen here in the Sachem School District, particularly given your size. But we can work together, and we can craft. We could make some changes to some of the adjectives. And I haven't seen your edits, but I'll work with the superintendent, and we'll come up with a letter that hopefully, majority of the board, or most of the board, or hopefully all the board, you're comfortable with.
Were you on that when you?
I don't think so. I think Chris sent it to Chris, and Chris forwarded it to us.
Okay, so he wouldn't have the opportunity to see the edits or suggestions or the links. Okay. Okay, so you have them, but he doesn't have them. Okay.
I send Chris what I need to send Chris, and so I send it to him everything.
Anyone else?
So
Please.
for future discussion item, I had wanted to see, we had a few safety issues in our district over the past, let's say, year. And I wanted to maybe see about having our safety protocols reviewed by an independent professional and have like a safety audit like what we've had in the past. I don't know, Mr. O'Keefe, if we can, because we've had that safety audit, if they can just come in and not do a full safety audit and just update things. But I know we've discussed the safety breakdowns and what has happened in our health and safety committee. And we had recommendations from them, but sometimes because of the few different things that have happened, to maybe have independent or outside eyes come in and look at our safety protocols may be a good thing. So that's what I would like to discuss. If we could have as a board discussion item in the future, everybody's thoughts on that.
Can we maybe get some information on who would be doing that and how we would go about hiring that person or the timeline?
I mean, I guess we need to know the scope of what it is we're taking a look at. I mean, obviously, we did a very comprehensive threat vulnerability risk assessment several years back before we installed the vestibules and the visitor management system and everything else. And that was done by a team that came in. I certainly could contract with them again. And depending upon what it is you want us to look at, I could bring them back in to have a new set of eyes on the district. And obviously, everything is very different now with COVID. I mean, it might even be the type of thing where we have to hold off. And since we're not really inviting, large numbers of visitors into the building, it might have to hold off for a couple of months, but I could probably get you some ideas of what they would look at and quotes and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm
Yes,
good.
I'm good with that.
Mike?
John, it's not really a budget item. Any word on a demographic study?
No, they just have all the materials. So they had sent me a very large list of wants. So I've provided them all the data that they asked for. So
Did they give you an estimated completion date or?
No, but it did, like I had said, even when we first signed up for it, I thought it would probably be either deep into the budget cycle or at the end of the budget cycle before I saw the numbers. So I can get you an update.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Good. The next meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Wednesday, January 19th, right here in the Samoset Boardroom. Can I please have excuse me, I don't have the paper in front of me. Chris, you might going to have to say it because I don't have anything in front of me. Excuse me. Motion and a second to move into executive session for collective negotiations. And a request for personal leave time. Motion by Mr. Isernia, second by Mr. Baumann. All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Thank you.